Oh. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry that we're running a little bit behind, but we have a great agenda this evening, and I ask that everyone stand for our rendition of the Star Spangled Banner and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Aloja, for that, and the students for that great rendition. Okay. We are now going to move next to public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and be seen? And please grab a microphone and state your name. And
yes. Good evening. My name is Virginia Scott. I'm a councilwoman in the town of Cornwall, and I'm also going to speak to you tonight as a resident and taxpayer of the community. I am urging this board to deny item 11, the Cornwall and Hudson water exemption. The town of Cornwall in November of 2023 denied this request. Historically, we've requested, it's been denied. I understand that this board in January, you denied another municipality, the village of Curas Joel, an exemption. I want you to be consistent with your voting and your policy. I'm sorry, I don't have my breath. So policy. As a taxpayer, I want to say anytime an exemption comes, you're shifting the burden onto the people who are paying the taxes. And I feel the village needs to pay their taxes like everyone else. If there were some kind of reduction in terms of water delivery and rates, that would be another conversation, but I don't see that. So I thank you, and I urge you to deny this request. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Scott. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to ask that we change up the schedule in the interest of time a little bit. Next, we have a recognition of outstanding musical instrument students. And instead, what I'd like to do is move first to the recognition of Special Olympics participant and ask Ms. Tarasi to come forward with that presentation, please.
All right, good evening. Thank you. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Nicole Triassi. I'm the Director of Pupil Personnel Services for the district, and it is my great pleasure to honor our Special Olympics participant, Sophia Benninger. Sophia, you can come on up. Sophia participated in the basketball and soccer skills. Come right here, Sophia. Sophia participated in the basketball and soccer skills competitions this past Saturday at Middletown. She did an amazing job. She wound up coming in first place in basketball, fourth place in soccer. And if anybody knows the motto for Special Olympics, it's let me win, and if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. And let me tell you, although Sophia did win, and that's an amazing athletic accomplishment, she was so brave, so brave. There were multiple teams there. There were participants on each team, and she was the only participant for Cornwall. So she didn't have teammates. She had her family. She had her amazing coach. She had some of us fans there to support her. But the spotlight was on her, and she had to wait a lot for the other teams to go. And she did it, and she did it wonderfully. So I am so incredibly proud of how brave Sophia was, and we just want to thank her and recognize her tonight. I just quickly want to also recognize Mia Paquin-Reed as a Special Olympics coach. So Mia is a first year, she was hired this year as a special education teacher at Cornwall Elementary School and was previously a teaching assistant for us. And when I reached out looking for a Special Olympics coach, she jumped on the opportunity. I knew she would be great at it, and she was absolutely great at it. So I just want to thank you for your hard work, your dedication, for leading our team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tarasi, and thank you, Sophia. Great job, and thanks for representing Cornwall so well. Okay, so let's then move. We have a night of stars that we're going to recognize, and Sophia's the first of many. So let's move on to the recognition of our outstanding musicians. Ask Mr. Ravinsky to come forward, please. T-Rav, take it away.
Good evening. Every year, so we're going to talk about a bunch of amazing musicians. These are our All-State and our NSBTA members. So, from Mr. Hoover, every year, the New York State Band Director Association puts on a 3-day honor band festival in Syracuse. Students from all over the state audition and are hand-selected to perform in either the jazz ensemble, which is only 18 participants, or the symphonic band, which is only 100 participants. This year, 2 students from CCHS were selected for the jazz ensemble, and 1 student was selected from the symphonic band. Over 600 students applied for these honors groups throughout New York State. 9 were selected from Orange County and 3 from Cornwall. So I would like to bring down those students. We had one who was not able to make it because he's in another rehearsal right now. So Garcia Warren was not able to make it. He was the lead trumpet in the jazz ensemble, 1 trumpet of 4 trumpeters. Christian Green was the second tenor sax in the jazz ensemble, 1 of 2 tenor saxophones. And Reed Johnson was the first alto saxophone in the symphonic band, 1 of 6 from the entire state. So Reed and Christian, come on down. I'm going to keep them up here because they're actually going to tag into this next conversation I get to have. Each year, approximately 6,500 sophomores and juniors prepare a New York State NSBTA solo in hopes of being considered for a spot in the All-State Honors Ensembles. This year, Cornwall Central High School was happy to announce that one student has been selected for this honor, and we had 3 students selected as alternates. Emerson Barth was selected for the 2023 All-State Mixed Chorus. Emerson performed at the All-State concert on Sunday, December 3rd, in the gorgeous Kodak Hall at Eastman School of Music in Rochester. This concert was a culminating performance of not only the hours of work he spent rehearsing that weekend, but for the years of practice and lessons mastering, in addition to his voice, his cello, and his piano skills. So, Emerson Barth, come on down. Congratulations on being selected for All-State this year. And in addition to Emerson performing and getting the opportunity, we had 3 alternates this year, and those 3 alternates happened to be our Nisbeta kids. Christian Green on jazz saxophone, Reed Johnson on alto saxophone, and Garcia Warren on jazz trumpet. So those 3 were alternates to All-State, which is a huge accomplishment on itself with thousands and thousands around the state auditioning. So congratulations to all of you. We're proud of you here at Cornwall. So.
Well done. Fantastic. Like I said, tonight is a night of stars, and it continues. We got to cover all the A's tonight, right? We just covered the arts, and now let's move on to athletics. So where's Mr. Simo? Could he come forward, please, and help recognize our star athletes?
So similar to what Mr. Triassi did, I just want to take a moment to recognize our coaches. This year we were fortunate to hire 2 new ski coaches, which alpine skiing is not an easy position to fill. So we brought in 2 dynamite coaches, and in their first season they brought home a state championship, and we couldn't be more excited and proud to welcome them in, both of which happen to be community members as well. So even an added sense of pride there for them. So thank you both very much. On the other extreme, we have Dave Foyer and Brian Creedon, which have both been coaching here at Cornwall for over 30 years, and even more impressive, have coached over 100 consecutive seasons here at Cornwall. And Dave and I were just talking, and I believe it's his 120th season. So extremely impressive. I know he doesn't like that recognition, but time and time again, we are recognizing our track, cross-country, indoor track, and Dave is so quick, and Brian so quick to give the recognition to the kids. But there's something happening there, and we're very grateful to have them a part. So now for why we're here, the kids. Our SMR team. So SMR is Sprint Medley Relay. It's comprised of a couple of quick sprints that equate to 1 mile. So everybody here has probably gotten on a treadmill or 2. And you've run a mile. So think about what's your best mile time. I really want to just get everybody thinking about that. So their SMR is a 200, followed by another 200, followed by an 800 and a 400. Equates to a mile. So they ran that mile in 4 minutes and 5 seconds. That's pretty impressive. It also, not only was it impressive, it actually set a new school record. And they finished 4th in the country with that time. And with that recognition, or with that place, that earned them All-American status. So it is my pleasure to introduce Leah Mellon, Christina Garcia, Kagan Leonard, and Olivia Saberka.
Thank you.
She's going to stand here, and we'll get a picture with you guys, okay? Coach, come on up. You're going to turn this way. Do you want to get a picture with them? Any of the board members want to take a picture, we would love to do that. There you go. Thank you. Great job, girls. Thank you for being here. All right, so that's 1 mile. The next group, decided they wanted to go a little bit further, so they ran the 4x8 at the state championships. They broke the school record by over 10 seconds. In addition to winning the New York State Championship, they also won the New York State Federation Championship. Their time for 2 miles was 9 minutes and 5 seconds. After they got all those trophies and medals and all that, they decided, let's go even further. So the following week, they decided, let's run the 4x mile at nationals. So 4 miles, they decided to run 4 miles in 20 minutes and 52 seconds. That's a pretty impressive time. And they finished second at nationals, only to a school from Delaware that had 4 individuals from 4 different states participating. And this also earned them All-American status. So our state, federation, and All-American team, Carrie Murphy, Olivia Saberka, Maris Potter, and Sophia Simo. Sorry, I set that precedent early. Now to alpine skiing. So this year, I was told this is one of the most technical courses the state has ever set on a course, and many teams were unable to even finish. Our team didn't just finish, they went on to win our school's first ever state championship in alpine skiing. More impressively, it's the first time any school in Section 9 has brought home the state championship. So their feat was not only impressive, it was precedent-setting for our entire section, and hopefully it sets a trend for all of our neighboring schools. These individuals, Caroline Conklin, Samantha Lawney, and Mackenzie Culgan. Coaches, jump up. And we just want to thank you all for your continued support of our programs. And now that we've completely recognized all of our winter sports, hopefully spring can actually show itself for us.
Oh, fantastic, Mr. Simo. Thank you for that. And congratulations to all our athletes, even those that were not here this evening. I appreciate everyone competing and representing Cornwall in the way you do. Thank you again. Okay, so that takes us then to reports, and we'll kick it off with student reports. Nicholas?
Sorry, Nick. All right, so I'm going to start off with the Cornwall Elementary School good news for April. During the month of April, Cornwall Elementary students have focused on exploration and discovery. The changing temperatures and blossoming plants have given our students the opportunity to go outside and become scientists in the making. On April 5th, we have had a very special spirit assembly for our students. K through 4 classes gathered together in the cafetorium to celebrate our April Sense of Humor Principals Award winners and watch a preview of the CCHS production Something Rotten. The room was roaring with laughter and excitement as the actors danced across the stage in the Baroque costumes. Thank you to Susan King and Tony Ravinsky for arranging the event. Our students can't wait to see the whole show open when it comes this weekend. On April 8th, our students got to experience a once-in-a-generation solar eclipse. The Cornwall Elementary School PTO covered partial costs for medical-approved eclipse glasses for all of our students and staff members. At 2:15, many of our classroom teachers brought their students outside to witness the event. For those that stayed inside, their lessons were supplemented by a variety of resources provided by our district administration and our technology integration specialist, Ms. Jados. Students and staff alike were in awe at the sight. It was a moment we will never forget. Our third grade classes have been continuing their field trips to the Black Rock Forest to examine the changes that occur during springtime. They hike the Black Rock Trail and study the diverse habitats of small creatures such as salamanders. We are so appreciative of our relationship with the wonderful staff at Black Rock Forest, and our students always look forward to their trips there. This month also marked the beginning of our annual Partners in Reading program. Every year at Cornwall Elementary School, students, parents, and teachers come together to participate in this event. This year's theme is Spring into Reading. Our students are working together toward a school-wide reading goal of over 100,000 minutes read. A large thermometer has been posted in the front foyer of the building to keep track of the minutes. We can't wait to watch it fill up as our students discover the joy of reading. In the next coming weeks, we are looking forward to the Boots and Beauties dance, Teacher Appreciation Week, and the spring concert. All right, and good news for Cornwall-on-Hudson. On April 4th, the Student Council participated in the second half of the Stand Up program. Students from the Safe School Ambassador program at the high school lead elementary and middle school students, and a series of workshops about bullying prevention. The students had a great time creating skits and then performing them for each other. Congratulations to the cast and crew of Willy Wonka Jr., which was held on April 6th and 7th. All of the young actors and actresses did a fantastic job, and the audience was thoroughly entertained. Both performances were standing room only. Thank you to the many PTO volunteers who made this drama production possible. ELA state testing took place on April 10th and 11th. The students put forth their best efforts, and the entire faculty and staff are very proud of how the children handled the challenge. The testing went very smoothly and with minimal disruption to the K-2 students. Math state testing will take place on May 7th and 8th. On April 11th, the PTO hosted their annual garden cleanup activity for families at school. The volunteers helped to get the garden ready for growing season by weeding, composting, and mulching. Throughout the spring season, the PTO is planning many activities for the students during school day and at recess. We are all looking forward to the fruits of their labor. Tomorrow, April 19th, is opposite day at COH. Students are encouraged to dress like teachers, and teachers are encouraged to dress like students. This is a literal way of celebrating the character trait of the month, which is sense of humor. The staff is looking forward to seeing who the students will dress as. It is always a great time. Looking ahead, the PTO is hosting their annual talent show on Friday, April 26th, beginning at 6 p.m. in the COH auditorium. Come see the many talents of the students at COH. In the past, acts have included a comedian, gymnast, dancers, and magicians. It should be a very entertaining evening. And this is Willow good news for April. The character trait for April is sense of humor. Students at Willow Avenue are full of laughter as they share their jokes with us each morning on the morning announcements. Our 3rd and 4th graders took the New York State ELA assessment last week. They worked extremely hard and did their best. Kindergarten students are being introduced to classic stories and fairy tales that make their imagination soil. They will study the message, characters, and setting. The fox and wolf are sly, and the prince and princesses are fetching. First graders learned about sunlight, moon phases, and the number of hours of daylight in each season as they prepared for the solar eclipse. Second grade students have been working on independent research projects, making bottle biographies of famous Americans. Students visited the library to make a gallery walk and learn about all of these famous Americans. Our third graders visited Ellis Island and participated in an immersive experience called The Journey. The students played their roles of newly arrived immigrants coming to Ellis Island in the early 1900s. Prior to the trip, the students participated in 3 lessons to prepare them for the day, as they had to take on the role of an immigrant via storyboards. Many of our students dressed up as immigrants, and they had to be at school at 7 a.m. to catch the 9:30 a.m. ferry to Ellis Island. Students were processed by park staff as their immigrant character as they departed the ferry and stepped onto Ellis Island. This program helped them see how difficult the journey to America was and the sacrifices that were made to come to our country to seek a better life. They were also awed by seeing the Statue of Liberty up close. It was exciting and a memorable day. Our fourth graders are beginning to prepare for their transition to the middle school. Mrs. Palumbo and Mrs. Burton are coming to visit our fourth graders next week to introduce themselves and to give students a sneak peek into the middle school. They are looking forward to visiting the middle school in May. Monday, April 22nd is Earth Day. Students at Willow Avenue will be celebrating by planting flowers and plants and participating in an all-day-long celebration of why it is important to be kind to the earth. Lastly, students enjoyed the solar eclipse with fun activities in the classroom and eclipse glasses by our PTO. Cornwall Central Middle School good news. CCMS students worked very hard and consistently on their New York State ELA assessment last week. Students in 5th and 8th grade were the first groups in the CCSD to take the assessments online in the CCSD. Congratulations to Sophia Beninger, who's a CCMS student and Miss Lark's success. Sophia represented Cornwall proudly at the Special Olympics. She took first place in basketball and 4th in soccer. Way to go, Sophia, we're so proud of you. Mrs. Palumbo and Mrs. Burton are visiting all of the 4th grade classrooms to kick off our 5th grade transition and orientation program. CCMS is very excited to meet these eager and enthusiastic students when they come for a visit with their class. And finally, this is good news for Cornwall Central High School. After a great spring break, CCHS students are back in the swing of school. Regents reviews and final exam preparation has begun while students are studying hard, ready to complete their courses. CCHS seniors have an exciting journey ahead of them for the remainder of the year. With Senior Fest, Decision Day, prom, a possible graduation walkthrough parade, and more, their final months at CCHS are poised to be memorable and fulfilling. The College Acceptance Board outside of the guidance department has been filling up, while many students are receiving and have received their college acceptances. The CCHS Drama Department successfully completed their production of Something Rotten last week. This production received a great amount of laughs and recognition from the entire CCSD community. CCHS sports are thriving this season by bringing home many wins and playing great games and matches. On Wednesday, April 17th, CCHS students participated in a career fair, which ran through all lunch periods. Students had the opportunity to talk to over 25 different professionals to learn about their careers, as well as how to be successful in different jobs. Mr. Ponsel and Miss Clyde took several students to Rockland Community College to participate in the Hudson Valley Construction Career Day. Also, the high school math DUSO team placed 3rd in the Division B mathematics competition. Lastly, CCHS students are looking forward to completing the remainder of the school year.
Good job, Nick. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for that good news.
Thank you.
And you did it by yourself. Kate's not here, but well done. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on with our next report, and that's Superintendent's report. Terry.
Thank you, John. I'm going to cede my time to some of our incredible students. Ms. Balcombe reached out to me to see if the Leadership Council could have some time to speak with the board and community about our upcoming Community Day. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Simo and our students.
So our Student Leadership Council is represented by 2 athletes from every single one of our varsity sports. The coaches nominate 1 junior and 1 senior representative, and we have our Leadership Council. So they've done some great work. Actually, just most recently this afternoon, they were down at Cornwall Middle School talking with our 5th graders just about some conflict resolutions and just what it means to be, a quality Cornwall student. And it was a great conversations that were taking place today. Last year we held our first annual Dragon Day, and that is what they are here tonight to talk to you about is our 2nd annual Dragon Day. So everything that they're doing is 100% behind them, and that's their introduction. So here you go, Callie. You'll start it.
Good evening. My name is Callie Balcom, and I'm a senior at the high school. I'm on varsity skiing and varsity swim, and I'm a part of the communications group. So recently, we've just been finishing up our flyers to get out to all the schools and out in town. We've been just connecting with the other groups, figuring out what to do. We've been setting up the Board of Education meeting. Tomorrow we'll be at COH for their Friday morning opening to start getting the kids excited about it. And next week we'll be at Willow Avenue's Friday morning opening. So right now we're just trying to get the word out and get everyone excited, and we hope you guys can all be there. Thank you.
My name is Gavin. I was the senior captain for the basketball team this year, and I'm part of the vendors group. So far we had multiple people already reach out to us saying they want to come to the event. And Callie and I, yesterday at the career fair, we went to every single table and just asked if they wanted to come. We got all their information, so that's going to be going real soon. And we have dozens of other people that we're going to contact. We just want all the vendors, big or small, to just come out and just support the Cornwall community in a positive way. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Reynoso, and I'm a junior, and I'm captain of the football team, and I also play varsity basketball, and I'm representing the activities group. And we've made it a priority this year to make each activity accessible and fun for all ages. So it's a community day, so we want everybody a part of the community to be having fun. So there should be no difference in experience between a 2nd grader being there and participating in activities versus an 11th grader or a 10th grader being there and doing the same thing. And we believe representation is key. So we are reaching out to every varsity sport within the high school so they can run their own little activity, introducing kids to their sport, because you never know at what age you fall in love with something. And it's usually when kids come up to you, they're the most impressionable, and when they see older kids doing something, and you can kind of pass on that love to them, and we think it's important to do that. We're also reaching out to other prominent members of the community and staff to set up their own little stations for activities and niches outside of sports. And yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Hello, I'm Anthony Tucci. I'm a senior. I'm the captain of the football and baseball team. I'm a part of the fundraising group, and we are in charge of getting money and creating the funds for our Dragon Day and for all the activities. Any money that's left over after our Dragon Day goes to our team, sports teams, and the senior athlete scholarships. Just from last year when we started Dragon Day, we were able to add 6 new scholarships for our student athletes and add more to those scholarships. So if anyone here wants to or knows someone who would like to donate or help out, I would be happy to talk to them after. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kerry Murphy. I'm the captain of the cross country and indoor and outdoor track and field team. And I'm part of the 5K/running group for Leadership Council. And basically what we're focusing on, I know last year we had the 5K. Mr. Dade was a part of it, and he ran it. Still recovering, maybe, I don't know. But we're doing that again this year. It's going to start at 9 a.m. We ask people to get there a little bit early. If you want to warm up, get your bibs and get ready. We're also doing the Kids Fun Run again this year. I think it gets kids really excited. I know Isaiah said that kids really fall in love at a young age with the sport, and so we want to get people excited about track and running, so that's a great opportunity. And this year we're also doing relays, so we're asking kids and each sports team to get a relay together of 4 people. It's going to be a 4x4. But we're also asking coaches and staff and Board of Ed members to get a relay together, and we would love to have you guys run. Yeah, and we'll make you guys do a 4x1, so don't worry. We won't push you too much, but thank you guys.
Wow, what a great presentation, and thank you all for coming out tonight and selling your wares. What's the date again of Community Day, please? May 19th, 9 to 12 at the middle school. At the middle school football field. Thank you. Let's all support it any way we can. All right. Well done. Okay, Terry, so that's your report. That's a great report. So that brings us then to my update. I'm going to be brief because we have some more important matters to talk about. The first item will be the budget, or the next item that we'll talk about is the budget. And I just want to say that, as everyone's probably read in the papers and like, we're at the point where we have a conceptual agreement among the parties, and now all that's left is for the T's to be dotted and the I's, or the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So hopefully we're on schedule, and we'll be able to see something before we meet again on that. So that's a bit of a good news. I do want to address something that was brought up during community comments having to do with the COH tax exemption request. There's a long history on this, not just from COH, but also KJ to the south. We've maintained a consistent position on this throughout. I don't see that changing. That said, I am aware that there is ongoing litigation as it pertains to KJ and their suit pertaining to the town of Woodbury, of which we've signed on to that in terms of a common defense, since we're affected by that in some regards. I understand that ruling is now before the appellate court. The initial ruling was against KJ and their request. It's very technical. I don't want to really spend any more time discussing it, but this issue is some people may have heard that it's been resolved. It is not resolved. It's before an appellate court. And our position, I believe, as it's contained in tonight's agenda, should speak for itself. That said, water is vital to the community. I believe that there is mutual interest here between COH, the district, and the town, and my hope would be that as we move forward, we find ways that we all could work together toward scripting a workable solution for all, and I'll just leave it at that. The next thing I just want to give a brief update on is the survey. I think we've gone through all the hurdles except for the necessary technological logistics that will be forthcoming. And I'm looking at Terry right now. He's giving us a north-south. And so look for this to launch to our 4 groups, the instructional staff, non-instructional staff, families, and students, middle school to high school, within the next few days. Is that a week? Is that? Before the end of the month, I think, is a fair way to characterize that. Is that right? I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that it's before May. And we look to wrap that up by probably the first 3 weeks of May, and we'll be providing updates as we meet in the future on that. Okay? Fantastic. I saw you move. Nothing. Great. The last thing I'll do a plug. The Leadership Council was talking about scholarships. If you haven't gotten your check to Harvey about the BOE scholarship. I am one of those who have yet to. Please do it. We'll meet again on Monday, so it'd be a great time to fill the coffers with that donation of $100. And that is it for me. Okay. That takes us then to the consent agenda. Before we go into it, is there anyone that would like to have an item contained therein talked about separately? Bass?
I'd like to pull 10 and 11.
Items 10 and 11, okay. Anyone else?
11 is to make sure that's a COH.
Yeah. And just for the avoidance of doubt, 10 is a copier lease resolution between the district and Orange Ulster Boise's. And 11 is the water exemption resolution for COH. Any other items? None? So with that, then could I have a motion?
Sorry. I apologize.
That's all right, you're faster than me. So that's 10, 11, 12 being the election inspection resolution, appointment resolution, I'm sorry. Okay, so that leaves us with items 1 through 9. And could I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So moved. It is approved. Okay, so let's go item by item. We'll start with number 10. Could I have a motion for discussion on the copier lease resolution?
So moved.
A second? Okay, discussion. Bass.
Yeah, thanks, John. I just like to have a little bit more information again for transparency. How many units are we talking about for a total of 214,000?
I can answer that.
Thank you, Harvey.
Yep. We currently have 22 copiers. The reason you don't see this resolution often is it's done every 4 years, because that's the term of our agreement with the lease. One thing we're doing as well, we are upgrading 9 of those 22, and the total cost after 4 years is very close to what we have been paying. It's only going up about $2,000 over the 4 years.
Okay, thanks. So it's like $10,000 per copier. I mean, does it sound like too much, too little?
No, this is very competitive. It's also important to understand that there's a difference in copiers. There's not 22 of the same kind. Some of them are these very big machines, and some of them are a little smaller. But we're happy with what the price is compared to everybody else.
Okay, is there maintenance and service? It's mentioned here, kind of, again, very competitive, very good deal we're getting there.
Yes, the maintenance part of it is a fixed price. We fixed that, and we're happy with that over 4 years. You'll note in the resolution, there's also an overage. We don't pay overage. The reason it's in there is a formality because it has to be, but the copy count is so high that we never reach it, so we don't pay it.
Thank you.
Great. Just to follow up, Harvey, with Bass's line of questioning, in terms of those 9 new copiers, are they targeted anywhere, or are they just scattered throughout the district? I know there was some issues over the last year or two, discussions about copiers not, being readily available. Does this go a long way to solving some of those issues?
So a couple things. It's not 9 new copiers. We're upgrading 9 copiers to the next, to the next level. So if they were, a 55 copy per minute, it's going up to a 70, which means it's a bigger machine, it's more durable, it can handle more. As far as the issues that you may have heard, a lot of them had to do with parts, the availability of parts. We had to wait longer than normal because of the whole supply chain situation in the world. It just wasn't something we can control. But it has let up tremendously, and this is with Xerox, and they've been responding very well lately in terms of parts.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that, Harvey. All right, let's take a vote for this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, great. So approved. That brings us to item number 11. Could I have a motion on the COH water exemption resolution for 2024?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Bass, then
Yeah, thanks, John.
Christian.
I heard on a few occasions the comparison between the case we have, we're talking about here, COH, with KJ Village. KJ Village, they're talking about the village, while COH is talking about a building or two. I mean, why the comparison is warranted?
Okay, so they both are related to water facilities. And that's how they're similar.
Right, so I was mistaken. I thought
The
about
reason why KJ is because of the location of the well and their facility happens to be in Mountainville. And while Cornwall School District encompasses that region, and that's how why we're affected by that.
Okay, so we're talking, the comparison is apples to apples.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Christian?
So I think the first thing here is that, we took a vote in, I believe, January, maybe February, on KJ's request as well, and it was a unanimous vote to deny that. And really, I think for consistency purpose, that's really kind of where the discussion perhaps should end, because I don't think that there is as I said, if it's an apples and apples comparison, they both have water supply well field sources. They're both within the district. I can't see a logical or consistent reason to deny that. But I think that there's some other things that maybe are not explained, and I think deserve to have some explanation because of why I think, particularly Cornwall and Hudson. Because this is not going to affect our budget, right? Our budget is what our budget is set, and then we decide how to distribute that amongst the residents of the school district. So it's not going to take any money from any of our programs, but for our residents, whenever you exempt property, okay, it means that you are increasing, okay, the tax levy on them for what they're going to experience. And so we did this would be, if we voted for this would be the second exemption this year. And roughly we did the firefighters and EMS exemption that I believe had a fiscal impact of about $60,000. And then we add the $188,000 using the mayor's number for what the school district portion of it is. It might be a little bit different. And that means we've basically had a tax expenditure, if we pass both, of 0.5% of a levy increase without actually spending any money on something that is directly related to education. And I think that, if we're not going to, that has to come into, because what our job principally is to provide for education. And the second thing is that if you levy it through the school taxes, the village can raise new $200,000 just the same way we could by increasing it, what it's going to be from the status quo. And the thing is that this village does it, it only falls upon the people who benefit from it, the users. If you do it through the school taxes, there's a lot of people who are going to be paying for it, including several people on this board, and several, let's say, not just on this board, but also administrators where they live in Cornwall, who would basically be paying for a service they're not receiving. And that would seem to be kind of, let's say, violating some horizontal equity in how the taxes are being levied. Because if you're already paying taxes in New Windsor for water, or you have your own well, and that can cost thousands of dollars, it's not really clear why I should pay an additional amount to deal with the water system. I think it's important. I'm married to a water resource engineer, and it's not about the issue. It's a question of, taxes should be for the benefits that you receive. And the third issue I just want to bring up on this is because it's been coming up in public discussion about the cost of the district's water, and that we are being underpaying or being undercharged. And just using the mayor's numbers in Cornwall Local, he said 7 million gallons per year at a difference of $5.60 between what we cited as a fair price versus what we're paying. And that comes to about $40,000 a year. And that does not seem to justify a tax benefit that's almost 4 to 5 times larger than that. And so the point about it is everything's intertwined. We are one of the things that I'm willing to work with the different governments in our area to solve problems, because obviously it all affects everyone. We need water, obviously, in our schools, our families, our students. But the question is, what is the fairest way to do this? and going through the school district's tax levy doesn't seem to be the fairest way to me.
Thank you, Christian. I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyhow. You know, there's some mutual benefit that's derived, which is separate than what we see in the KJ situation. However, the issue of fairness and consistency is a principle that we've adopted, and at this point, there is no reason to, I believe, change that principled approach. Maybe the future will change. Maybe there'll be new information that comes out. Maybe there'll be new solutions that are able to be postulated, created, and then agreed upon. But that's for another day. Tonight, our mission is to look at this resolution and take action on it, one way or the other. So
John,
thank you for your comment. Brennan, go ahead.
One very small but very important point to make, which has gotten muddied in some of the recent comments. We are voting on whether to deny the request. Okay, so a yes vote means we are denying. Christian, in your last, I don't think you did it intentionally, but you switched those around. So when a similar motion was brought to us in, I believe, January, we voted yes to deny the exemption. It's the same vote tonight.
Good clarification. Thank you for that. Jim, please.
Thank you. So just a quick comment, just for edification of our audience in person and on YouTube here. You know, it's been kind of talked about here, but just to add a little more context. So both the Village of Cornwall and Hudson and the Village of Curious Joel own water-producing properties which sit within the town of Cornwall, and they are within the district boundaries for the Cornwall Central School District. Those properties are both taxed. It's on advice of our council and as well as our past practice. Both the Village of Curious Joel as well as the Village of Cornwall and Hudson have asked us pretty on a regular basis, pretty much every year, to give real property tax relief to those parcels. And the district has denied those requests. The lawsuit that's been talked about, the town of Woodbury denied an exemption to the Village of Curious Joel, but granted an exemption to the Village of Woodbury, I believe.
So just to clarify, these exemptions were actually to 3 different municipalities, Harriman, Chester, and I believe Monroe.
Okay.
But they were from decades long ago.
But some were granted, some were denied, is the short version, which Curious Joel, the village, then sued the Village of Woodbury, claiming there was a disparate treatment where some were granted, some were denied. Our treatment as a district has been equal across all municipalities who have asked us for this request. The only thing I'll add is I know the village mayor, Mayor Galliano, has been in contact with Harvey on this a couple times over the last several months. Being a village resident, I just happened to bump into the mayor on the sidewalk today, being a small village, and I think he said that he wanted to forward us some information from his from the village council. So tonight, I'm in favor, and I'm going to vote yes to deny this exemption. But to your point that you made earlier, John, if there is a way that we can work with the village in a mutually beneficial way, and if the information that's provided to us from the village's attorney and is discussed by our attorney, and if it makes sense to change this action in the future, I'm open to that if it's mutually beneficial.
Thank you for that, Jim. Just to clarify, so there is still outstanding litigation. I really don't want to talk about it in public, but thank you for those clarifying comments. And so as I think it's probably good to put that on our list to hear from council on where that stands. My understanding is that they made the appeal back in, I believe it was either in December of 2022 or soon thereafter, and it's still outstanding. And it's probably good to get an update in the future on that, Terry, okay? All right, so I think we've talked this pretty well. I appreciate the ads and the information that was provided, especially from Jim. All in favor of the resolution to deny the request?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstains? All right. So approved. Thank you. And it takes us to item number 12, which is the election inspection appointment resolution. A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Great, thank you. I understand that we are on probably the second or third draft of this evening. So I don't know if that was part of the issue that needs to be addressed, but Christian, your discussion.
I can't verify that right now, but I suggest we approve it either way.
So
Yeah, I'm not
I
saying-
appreciate the to ensure that we have identified the right person and that the record reflect that.
Right.
We will
Sure.
we will ask Harvey to go back and,
Yep.
and verify that we have the proper spelling. You know, as someone who has withstood that their entire life of misspelled names, I understand how it happens, and we'll just make sure that the record reflects accurately. All right, thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstains? Okay, great, so that passed as well. That brings us then to our spotlight presentation on a conceptual, if not almost final, budget for next year, and
Parameters of a conceptual.
parameters. Yeah. Well, that's what the state has named their actions. I'm describing our actions tonight, Jim, which is our conceptual budget, what we know based on the latest numbers according to Harvey. So take it away, Harvey. Thank you.
So, as you know, we've been waiting with bated breath for something from Albany. My team met this morning because the sand's running out. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing the board and community with something that could be quasi-actionable because we have one meeting left on the books. Not saying that we couldn't have more meetings, but we know we're meeting on Monday. So Harvey, in the last board meeting, talked about what would happen if the sand ran out and we had to make a decision based on what we know. We decided to add a little bit more to what we know and the what-ifs, just to start to set some guardrails up for our conversation. So some of the things one of the things that we're really relying on is the governor put forward an extender only until tomorrow. So that's a really good sign that they're wrapping things up. Everything that we're reading doesn't seem like there's going to be a windfall of money going around, but there could be a little bit. So what we decided to present today is inclusive of our current budget numbers based on the governor's proposed budget. Even that has been modified slightly, as you'll see in the presentation. We're also going to offer, based on the initial needs assessment list, our prioritized needs assessment for the district. As I stated publicly, this is not the year to spend $1 million on needs. It's just not that year. So we went ahead and based on our conversations and looking at the needs of the entire district, came up with a prioritized needs assessment list. And then we'll end with scenarios for funding. So we're leaving tonight without a budget from the governor. We hope to wake up tomorrow morning to some news that Harvey can wash and then put us in a spot for Monday to have real numbers, but also with some additional information provided tonight. So that's what we'll tackle tonight, and then the board just has some decision-making to do from there. All right?
So the first thing I like to do at the beginning of each budget presentation is kind of bring you up to speed where we are with the numbers before we move forward with anything. if you look at the bottom line for tonight, 418.24, you'll see that the deficit on the far right side went from 251 down to 225. And the reason that that occurred is because we had a teacher who left us mid-year, and when we backfilled that position and hired her replacement, she was at a little bit lower salary. Consequently, that came down by about $25,000. And obviously, as Terry just mentioned, the open items, state aid. We just don't know anything more than what you're reading as well.
So based on our discussion last year, we felt it was important to remind everyone of the identified needs assessment for 24-25. Just really quickly, a full-time kindergarten early intervention teacher for Willow and COH. FTE kindergarten teacher. It says CES, but it's really to handle enrollment growth at those early ages across the district. 0.5 FTE speech teacher at the elementary level. That was really to handle non-mandated services, so what can we do proactively? 5 hall monitors at the middle school for supervision assistance. An FTE business teacher at the high school. We were talking about what we know is coming from the state is more mandates around financial literacy and things of that nature, in addition to what our students have expressed interest in at the high school level. 0.2 FTE physical education teacher at CCHS, again, to address the enrollment and class selection needs there. We've talked a lot about the sound system needs at CCHS in the auditorium, the initial cost estimate there. FTE special education instructional coach. 0.6 communication specialist for district-wide, and 20 additional UPK seats. So that was the list presented over a month ago at the cost of just over $1 million. Knowing what we know in all of the releases, we know we're not going to come anywhere close to addressing the deficit that we currently have, which is $225K, plus whatever we decide to tackle out of the needs assessment. So we had a long discussion about what would be a reasonable ask for our community and to address the most pressing needs for the district. So the highest priority needs that we identified were as follows. The FTE high school business teacher. We have real data from the course selection process that shows that we have this need for next year. FTE elementary teacher, again, we just had kindergarten registration. Our registrar, Crystal O'Brien, sent me the numbers. We're opening our doors with only 2 seats open for kindergarten. And I can just tell you, having been here for 4 or 5 cycles of this, our families come out of the woodwork and fill those kindergarten seats in the months of June, July, and August. So we will be very, very large at the elementary K level if we do not add some relief there. The last one was more of a, where are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck? So it's really hard to squeeze in another full-time FTE. So we said, going with the additional UPK seats is a tremendous advantage for the district long-term, but the cost is one of those tiered systems, so the more seats we're adding, the cost comes down. So we saw that 52K as a nice bang for the buck to affect 20 families in the district and then increase our UPK seats district-wide. So that would bring us to 310K, so about a third of the needs assessment overall costs would be addressed with these newly identified highest priority needs for the district.
So the question is, if we were to add those 3 key areas of additions that from our needs assessment, what does it do and how do we actually pay for that in light of the fact that I came in here and I said we're down to 225 already of a deficit? So if we took the deficit of 225 and we added those 3 highest priority needs of 310, brings our deficit down to about brings it up to about $536,000. There's many ways to fund this, but if nothing changes with respect to the level of state aid that we get, we have to figure out something. And really what makes the most sense to us is a 50-50 split between the tax levy and assigned fund balance. So we would take 50% of that 536 and increase the tax levy. What that would do to the tax levy, as it indicates there, it would go from 1.2% to 1.72%, okay? The second part of that is the assigned fund balance. Again, this is what the board designates from our surplus each year to offset the tax levy and to pay for the expenditure. So what we're suggesting here is that we go from 2.5 million to almost 2.8 million. And that would be the funding to pay for not only the deficit that we're in, as well as the three areas that we talked about. So what would that look like? Our total budget, which is really our expenditures, would just be over $90 million. Our preliminary revenue would be $87.3 million. And we would be utilizing assigned fund balance of 2.768. So we have a balanced budget. That's really what this sheet shows you, is it shows that our revenues are balancing off against our expenditures. So the big question comes, obviously, we know there's an extender, we know that it's up tomorrow. To be perfectly frank, we don't know much of anything else, okay? It could be extended again, this thing could go on and on. We as a school district have regulatory deadlines that we have to meet. Nothing has been said about these deadlines, but they're really only a week away. Usually we have close to a month to take care of all the paperwork and all the requirements. It's all being squeezed into a week. But we don't even know if we're going to get that week because we don't know if they're going to come to terms. So what are our options? What's the possible scenario? If the board has to adopt the budget before the state passes their budget. Scenario one, what if we get more state aid than we anticipated? You have three possibilities, three options. You could actually reduce the 1.72%, so you can apply that extra revenue against the levy and bring the 1.72% down. You could reduce the amount of the assigned fund balance. You could bring that down. And lastly, you can do nothing. You can just leave things the way they are. If we get more aid, what that's really saying is that at the end of next year, theoretically, we'll have an additional surplus amount equal to that increase in aid. Okay, and then the board can use that however they see at that point. Scenario two, what happens if we get less? While I think this is more or less likely, it's still, anything's on the table right now. So if we get less, we can increase the tax levy, above the 1.72%. We could increase the amount of assigned fund balance, which at 2.8 million is already pretty high, but nevertheless, you could still do that. Or you can do a combination of the two. Okay? If we were to assume that we're going to go up to 1.72%, I want to make sure you saw what the impact is to the public. So if you were a taxpayer and your house was $350,000, your increase for the year would be $106, or approximately $9 per month. Okay? I wanted to re-show this. We did it in our first presentation. It was the 10-year history of where we stood with our tax levy. If you notice that the average is 0.68%, and I just mentioned that if we have to go to 1.72, so we're pretty much right where we've been on an average, which is a good thing. It doesn't dramatically, spike up or and anything. But that's worth noting. And then lastly, what do we have left? As Terry mentioned, on Monday night, we will be presumably adopting the budget if we can. We are waiting for the state. And then the vote is on May 21st.
Just one last piece of information before we open it up for board questions. I just urge everyone, open a press release, open up a newspaper and read about what's happening in other districts across the state who are cutting kindergarten, who are really facing some really serious dilemmas right now. The reason why we took a hard look at that needs assessment is because Harvey and I can absolutely predict with pretty great certainty that this time next year, that 225K deficit, the governor did what I would have done. Finally, give everyone the warning a year out that I'm coming for cuts. Let everyone have time to digest it, but she all but said the foundation aid formula will be redone. We know that the aid formula is the expectation is to gear it to needs of districts, whether it's poverty and things of that nature. So I'm just asking that we remain really, really disciplined, because we know for a fact, not for a fact, but with pretty great certainty that the deficit that we're looking at now should increase next year if the foundation aid formula changes, and then we're going to be right back in the same boat of how do we sustain what we have. It's always harder to take away. So just keep that in mind, that she has signaled pretty clearly what she's doing next year. That foundation aid formula will go to an adjustment, attacking the inflation growth, enrollment issues, and then there is a lot of concern about which districts are getting what piece of the pie based on their various needs. So just want everyone to keep eyes wide open to that as we engage in these conversations moving forward. Any questions?
All right, let's, Christian, so I'd like first questions, and then we'll migrate into discussion once we get the questions answered. No question, Christian? Brendan?
Thank you, John. Great presentation again. From the numbers standpoint, everything seems very clear. I think that you've been spoon-feeding us these numbers for almost 2 months now, so that now they're going down easy. I just want to just understand a little bit more, and Terry, this is probably for you, just on the needs assessment side, just about the things that didn't make it and how close was everything bunched together. I know that there's a point where you have to pull the ladder up, where there next items that you would say are clear items that just missed the cut, or once we get into that missed the cut realm, are they all kind of even?
So I want to preface this with, I met with principals and directors to kind of give a preview, because Harvey and I saw kind of where this was going, that the needs assessment list would not be tackled. So we had a conversation of a lot of districts go through this very same thing that we've been very fortunate in Cornwall not to have to experience. So in other districts, I met with the team and said, I've done this before. When you're in a deficit mode, you start to look at within your school and your department, how do you reprioritize within your building to maybe shift priorities and needs? So I'll give an example that's been a conversation. This board and our community strongly supported additional teachers to push into classrooms as a result of the COVID pandemic and things of that nature. So if we're in a deficit, do you start to look at those positions or other positions all throughout your building to say, is there a need up here that we could address that might be filled by someone else in the building? So one of the answers to your question, Brendan, is that early intervention at the Willow and COH, top priority for our principals, our teachers, our administration. But we were also trying to figure out, are there things that we could do within our buildings that could address that need without adding additional staff? So that's definitely one. I would say that was our top next top priority. Megan, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Another one would be the special ed instructional coach is another world that we can look at in, when we write our grants in the summer, and, how else can we look to possibly fund that? just like Terry said, like looking at your current model and seeing what can we do to revamp it just to meet some of those needs.
And that's great. I was just going down the list. I think we had kind of had the same discussion last year about the hall monitors. How because that was up on the needs assessment. It didn't make it. How the middle school could deal with that. So that makes sense. I know I have other thoughts which I'll hold for later on the sound system. I know there could be. Is there a world where we break that up, not in this budget necessarily, but funding piecemeal through other means? I'm just thinking of same process we went through with the capital project. All the things that didn't make it, we had at least a mental roadmap of alternate paths. Have we gone that route? And on some of these, we have some sense of how alternate paths to fund them.
So that was another topic of conversation that Harvey and I delved into kind of deeply of, getting the knowledge of what the issues are in that auditorium to see if it could be broken out as speakers here, connections here, just really trying to parse that out. And then just talking about money generation from our clubs and organizations to see if that might be. I do know that there was one of our 5 schools that utilized the funds from their club to fund improvements in their auditorium. So there's definitely ways to accomplish that. That doesn't have to fit into this budget process.
Bass?
Thanks. Looking at this list again, last year we were discussing among the items, adding, I think, advanced placement credit for calculus, and the answer was it wasn't funded, but I believe I heard that there was some way around that, or a teacher would be hired later on and during the year, and I don't remember the exact solution. It was not on the list. It wasn't. It was on the list. It wasn't funded. No, it's not. So what happened to that case?
Yeah, just a reminder, we do a yearly budget discussion with our principals, directors, staff. So what we talked about last year is, just like we did with the business elective, looking at what the students are interested in. So just by way of example, Ms. Wilhelm produced a list for me of all of the students who have signed up as their first, second, or third choice for various business electives for next year. That same process is done with, she engaged a conversation with the math department, science department, English language arts, every department to say, if you were to offer something different, what would it be? Let's put it out there to our students and let their votes do the talking for us. So that's why we have this up there and not the calc position that you're speaking of.
So it wasn't identified again as a necessity.
Yeah, and I would argue the first round it wasn't really identified as a necessity. There was a student who expressed interest and talked about some of his peers that wanted it, but I argued that some of our other students could show up at a meeting and talk about what they wanted. I think Ms. Wilhelm and her team did it the right way for this round to say, here's an opportunity to add to your department. If we're going to add to it, what might those courses, additional courses be? Let's ask students, let's ask staff, and then come up with the final result. So that's where we've ended up.
Thank you.
Terry, I could just piggyback too on this. Just as a reminder, this process starts with us, admin, building, doing our audits in our building in November. So Harvey gets the budget packets out. Our principals start having conversations with their department chairs and grade levels to start identifying this. Then they come and do their budget presentations to us. And we get to this point where this is, what you see up there is what we've identified as, if we could get everything that we need, that's it. The top 3 that are there now, because of the situation that we're in, those are critical for us to open our doors come September. So you may see some of these items next year again as needs because we do need them. And we're not saying we don't need anything that's up there. It's just you have to get to a point where you're saying, okay, what is critical now for us to move forward in our district?
Christine?
Thanks, Harvey, for, again, making it easy to understand. The sound system. So I look at this beyond just, theater productions. This is, graduations, special events, speakers, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any way, and if there's excess funds from the capital project, when we're putting the sound system in at the field, could we tap onto that and get like a package deal or something and tie it into that? I feel like this comes up every year, and it is important to a big contingency.
The answer to that, actually not. The reason is because we
I
have to
thought so.
submit the scope to the state of specifically what we're doing.
Okay.
This is not even like close to something else we're doing, so it wouldn't be allowed.
Okay.
Let me ask a follow-up there.
Go ahead, Louis.
We wouldn't be able to hire one contractor with dual scopes to get a better buy? You can't mess with the SED pool of money through the bond, right? That's committed to there. You can't cross over. And if there's any funds, quote unquote, left over, you can't just spend them on chairs somewhere or whatever. But couldn't we solicit the work of one contractor, again, with dual scope, again, to get a better buy?
You could get a better buy by using somebody potentially, but even if there was money left over from the capital project, you can't just put it toward that.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying if this went through and you had 236
Sure.
identified.
We might get a better deal.
Yeah, get a better buy on that 236
Perhaps.
because you have one
Absolutely.
contract down.
Sure.
Two different pools.
Yes.
That were your, I think that's kind of where you were
I was,
going.
I wasn't thinking it would go through. I was thinking like, how could we find the money someplace
wasn't
else? I want a sale, I want to find a good deal.
So Christine, I like your thought on that, and I think there's probably ways that could be explored. And what I'd like to do, just to keep the
Yeah,
focus
I'm off
right
it.
now,
I'm-
because I
I
do
just have a
think
different
this
question.
should be a pursuit, and I do think that we should be able to find monies to make that a reality, whether it be private, public, or combinations thereof. That's the discussion I think is worthy of having going forward. But let's just kind of focus on what we're seeing right now.
Well, I have another question.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Off that topic. I'm assuming it's baked into the overall budget, any anticipated expenses or things related to the drop schedule. We haven't talked much about that. I don't know how that impacts the budget. And I want to make sure that that's covered and that we know what that looks like as we're looking at this budget.
Thank you.
So, really, really good question. We've gone through different iterations from our previous principal to current principal. We're in constant conversations with the CCCA, so it's still an unknown with regards to a final cost. All of that being said, I haven't allowed anything to move forward that we wouldn't be able to open our doors with for next year. So just like I talked about the COH and Willow example of how do we shift things around, I'm having the same conversation with Ms. Wilhelm and her team to say, if this is needed, what would we have within our existing budget to be able to shift things around to do so. So we opened our conversations with Harvey with that question of, I have to make sure that we take care of drop rotation schedule and what those needs might be. After the first presentation to the board, that was a question from the board. It just never got to a point based on those ongoing conversations that we were going to need to add existing additional positions that would be at the board level for approval.
But additional costs for coverage during lunchtime, I don't know all the, it's not all flushed out in my head, but maybe not extra positions, but additional costs, they're already baked into this model.
Yeah, so one of the things I think baked into the cost is a good way to look at it. So Harvey does a lot of projections of like how many 6 periods are we going to need, what's our substitute need going to be. So all of that was taken into consideration with even drop rotation looking at next year, but it didn't rise to the level of, we need 3 additional FTEs to make something happen. That's what would be at the board level for this needs assessment discussion.
You good, Christine? Jim?
Thanks, John. Thank you, Harvey and Terry, for this presentation. 3 questions. One, just, you've got kindergarten teacher here. Next slide says elementary teacher. That's referring to the same position? Okay. Megan says yes. I assume so, but just want to make sure. On to the timing question, Harvey. You said the sand is about to run out. The sand runs out a week from tomorrow? We have to have something approved?
There are reports that we have to file. Statutorily, the limit is no later than next Monday, and that's because we have to file something 24 hours after the board adopts the budget. So the latest the board can adopt the budget is Friday. Weekend doesn't count. I'd have to submit it Monday. Monday is the drop dead date.
Monday the 22nd?
No, the 29th.
Monday the 29th?
Correct.
So Friday the 26th is the last
It's the
available
last
day
day
for
that the
board
board could get together to
action.
approve the budget. Correct.
Okay. Do we need to get together twice? Because we need to approve a budget, and then you need to do the state report card, and we need to have the budget hearing, right?
The budget hearing comes after.
Okay. Do we need to vote? Do we need to vote on an agreement of what we say the budget is, have you do the report card, wait 2 days, and then meet again and vote to adopt when after the report card is publicly available?
Typically, yes. Because let's suppose whatever happens with the state budget, whether it's more or less, and this changes, okay? And you make a decision, what do we add, what do we cut? Okay, that's going to affect the report card. It's not something I can just put together in
Right.
2 minutes. It takes a couple hours. So yes, it would require most likely a second meeting.
But the second meeting could be very short.
Yes.
Yeah, 10-minute
Yes.
meeting, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, what I'll tell you is this conversation is very important because we're obviously taking in a lot of these questions and trying to think what the board may wish to include. Let's suppose we got an extra $300,000. I'm making this up. What would the board typically want to see? Okay, so I'll take a couple stabs and come with a couple different scenarios of the report card already done. If it hits the mark, perfect. We don't have to meet again.
Got it.
But it's very difficult to know.
Agreed.
So it's like a menu where you'd have,
Yeah.
choice A, B, or C to expedite the filing.
We could potentially.
If that were to happen, that would be a great problem to have, right? Because that would
It
mean
would be.
we would be receiving our full foundation aid amount.
We'd be getting something more than
Right.
what we have projected.
Yeah.
And that would be an awesome outcome.
That would be a nice stroke.
I
of
don't
luck.
want to handicap it,
Right.
but I'll keep praying that we get it.
Yeah.
So,
Final question, fund balance, if you could go, maybe 2 slides ahead from where you are now?
The assigned fund balance at the bottom?
Actually, skip maybe,
You're talking this slide? That column?
yeah, I'm just trying to get it, you're saying when you originally created sort of the template budget, I'll call it that, for the rollover, that you had used 2.5 million as the assigned fund balance assigned to the budget.
Right.
What does that then leave from the reserves? That 2.5 million, which you're potentially proposing raising to nearly 2.8 here, what's the pool that 2.8 is coming out of?
That pool, the hope is that the entirety of it comes out of the surplus from this year,
Okay.
so that it doesn't impact that which we already have put aside.
Do we know when will you know what that surplus amount is? What's your?
Most likely after when, it won't be by next week.
Won't be by Monday. Reading that, I mean, do you have a guess on what that amount may be?
I'm optimistic that we can fund that. We haven't had any, significant dark clouds.
Yeah.
Things are so far so good.
Yeah. Just trying to get a feel, obviously, for the mix of
I understand.
tax levy increase versus surplus. Obviously, to Terry's well-stated point, the governor has clearly signaled that she wants to really reduce school aid. I mean, she wants to fund other priorities in the state budget,
Right.
and she sees school aid as an area to be cut. To counter Terry's point, the Assembly and the Senate have said you're not cutting school aid. Right. So we'll see how that battle plays out. This year. We'll see how that battle plays out next year. I mean, she's clearly signaling a year ahead that she would like to cut it by changing the foundation aid formula, and she wants to cut aid to schools that decreased enrollment, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll see how that plays out. So it's important to be prudent. It's important not to dip too far into that well. And we've been very mindful in my time on the board and before my time on the board. But it's been especially vital in my time on the board because we've had all of that federal money that we've had to deal with. And we've been very mindful to not go on a spending spree, for lack of a better term, and to not say, hey, we've got money this year, we can go hire 20 new teachers, because we don't want to turn around and then have to fire 18 of those 20 a year or two later. We've been very, very much maintaining on a sustainable path for long-term financial success to this district. So it's important that we continue that discipline that we've exercised.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jim. It really is. I think we've been quite disciplined. We've been very conservative in our approach, and at some points it's been feeling like almost we've been dealing with austerity, even though I'm sure people have a different opinion about that. Foundation aid was rightfully ours from decades ago that finally came. Now the fact is that the state can't afford it. We'll see how this initiative, right? They're going out and hired consultants to rejigger the formula. Let's see how that plays out. I would be surprised to see that actually come to fruition by this time next year, that rejiggering. But stranger things have happened. It is government after all, right? Operating at the speed of something, maybe not light, but something. Sound, maybe? I don't know. Okay, any other questions? Christian, go.
So this is not so much a question as a counterpoint to what was just said, which is, I actually think the budget is too small, and I think that to explain what I mean by that, I think we have to go and just look at what has been done over the last 5 years. And what I've been looking at is what's developing right now in Carmel Central School District, where they're looking at, they're going to, just to keep their budget where it is, they're going to have 9% tax levy increase. And Dr. Rick Timms came in, who is from the State School Finance Consortium for the state, and one of the people that gets called in to talk about these things and consult throughout the state, and went through their budget and basically said, the reason you're in the situation you're in is because you've kept the tax levy too low for too long. And so that made me interested, and I looked at, okay, what was Carmel's over the last 5 years? And it was tax levy increase of about 1.6% if you average the rates. And so then, I looked at Cornwall, and Cornwall was at 1.3% over the last 5 years. And what he said is that when you keep the tax levy low, because the rate is on a base, you're basically constraining your fiscal space. So if you're telling me, for example, that state funding might go away, or there might be a formula there's less in, and that's the unstable part of your, let's say, your funding, you would want to have more fiscal space on the one that you actually control. And so looking over just two scenarios, what if the boards in the past 5 years had just passed a budget that was at the tax levy cap? Our budget right now would be $4.3 million larger than it is today, which means we address all our needs and we have more. And that's not saying that we should do that. It's just saying is that we are now the victim of our past decisions, just like Carmel is. And Carmel is facing situations where they might actually have to cut kindergarten and UPK and electives and athletics and other things that are not required. Or have the fiscal fuse that you're setting explode later on a future board that's going to have to raise a tax levy just to keep the current programs. And so if you look at, and I'm not saying we should do that, I'm just saying, but if you look at the 5 years before the last 5 years, which Harvey put up the numbers before you have the tax levy and what we actually passed as budgets, the previous 5 years basically kept to the tax levy cap. And what happened is, if you look at over the 10 years, our budget may be short about 9.2% from where it would be if we had a tax levy cap, where 8.2% of that 9.2% happened in the last 5 years, which means we've kind of entered a course. And why aren't we Carmel yet? It's because we have a very good assistant superintendent of business and we have reserves. Carmel does not. And so they're facing that. When I see that we're using more of our fund balance to kind of keep the tax levy low, I wonder what path we started on. And so for me, I would advocate passing the things that are basically one-time costs that don't have future obligations, simply to create the fiscal space that we might need in the future. So that would include, for example, the sound system at the high school, because it's a one-time expense. We're not going to replace it next year. So we have one time and we create the fiscal space we might need because we have bargaining unit contracts coming up, we have bus contracts coming up, and we're constraining our fiscal space. And then what we're going to do is present the community in some future year, okay, a budget that's going to be the type that will get voted down. And so I think it's prudent to, let's say, do something right now so that we have that fiscal space going forward. And so in addition to, well, not quite just in addition, but I would say the updated sound system and the way of doing it inside the budget as opposed to raising private funds or finding capital funded is that it actually increases our fiscal space in future budgets. And that's one reason to pass it within this budget, and then we have that $236,500 to handle some costs we might have in the future. For example, a decrease in foundation aid. I would support the 5 hall monitors because, once again, it doesn't lead to a long-term obligation. We can add them, and if we come to an exigency, that's a relatively easy thing to cut. Not that saying the hall monitors, it's bad for them, but it's something we can cut without cutting programs. So I would add those in. And personally, I would add 20 more UPK seats because it allows us to use some of the additional UPK monies if there are seats that can be logistically created. And just lastly, just on the business, I'm a business teacher at a high school. I've seen the numbers that Terry provided. They wouldn't make my school add an additional business position. If you look at Tappan Zee High School, which is exactly the same size as Cornwall Central High School, they have 2 business teachers. And that seems to be the size of the school. And if you looked at the actual enrollment numbers that I was presented, those aren't the numbers that you add a position for, and I know those well because my livelihood depends on me getting those numbers in different classes. And I know what will make someone add a position or cut a position on those numbers. So maybe there are new numbers and I'd like to see them. But on that last point of the business teacher position, we've talked about these financial literacy requirements, so news to me when I first heard that. I asked around, I asked well up almost to the state ed level, and no one seems to think that there's anything on the horizon, and that's something that I would think I would know about.
Christian, I just want to, you can ask Commissioner Rosa. She was the one who put out that financial literacy is paramount for the advancement of our students, and what I'll send to the board is, she said, I all but assure that this will be a requirement for New York State moving forward. So I can send that to the board, and I can send, Ms. Wilhelm actually sent me, today or yesterday, the updated course selection from our actual students for next year, so I can share those as well.
I'm willing to engage in a larger budget, create another position, but I'm saying that when we're not doing other things to create fiscal space, I'm not sure that would be my #1 priority among all the things that we have listed in our needs assessment.
Yeah, I can respect that comment, but not that our students aren't in need of the, they're selecting the courses that they feel would be most beneficial for their.
So thank you for that, Terry. I think we've kind of just segued from a Q&A section of the presentation to a deeper discussion. But before I I say we have. I just want to make sure that all the questions that people have been answered. And let me ask my question. Harvey, you provided that tax levy data, and we've seen that before. Could you refresh my memory as it pertains to the use of unassigned fund balances over time? I think the highest that we've actually assigned for budget purposes was maybe $4 million during COVID, the height of COVID, maybe?
It was 4.1 inch.
And that was a very special situation.
It was.
Right? Do you know what the average has been over a comparable period like your tax levy
Right.
sheet?
You really have to take that 4.1 out because you might recall the reason we were able to do that is we took some of the federal money we were able to utilize for our normal operating expenses. We supplanted some of our existing expenditures. We knew we were going to have a larger than normal surplus to be at 4.1. To your question, what's the norm? As long as I've been here, outside of that year, it's usually been somewhere between 2.2 to 3 million.
Okay.
So it's right in that range.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay. Any more questions for Harvey or Terry on this? No? Hey, thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Let me just provide an alternative theory to Christian's cited source. There is a third option, and that third option is the community basically votes down the budget that you propose. We've seen that in other districts. We've seen that in other issues here at the Cornwall Central School District. That is a reality. That creates a whole host of issues that I believe prior boards have worked very diligently to try to avoid and to find the right balance of what we need to advance education within the school district, as well as what the community itself can afford. And absent that review from your cited source about what communities can afford, I understand a 9% is sticker shock for just about everybody. And you don't have to be a taxpayer. You can just go to the grocery store and see the inflation that way. But my point would be, as much as some districts are facing some stress, we seem to be navigating these very difficult waters in a way that has been quite I think a testament to the work not only by Terry, Harvey, and the team to include teachers in terms of putting up what needs assessments are, but also the board in trying to find the right answer for us based on our condition. And hopefully if we continue with that type of mantra, we would avoid what other school districts may encounter, such as what's going on in the school district that you cited, Carmel.
So just in response, and I don't want to make it back and forth just between us, but I'd be happy to provide you with the data of the community support for the budget and the tax levy cap increase for the last 20 years, if you'd like, which would be, I mean, it's not 1,000 observations, but it's observations on what this community has supported over a pretty long period of time. And I'll let the data speak for itself on that. But the concern is that it's not a matter whether a budget will get voted down, it's whether a budget will be voted down now or later. And what we're talking about is not, let's say, 1% or 1.7% versus 5%. We're talking about 1% versus 2 or 2 and maybe a fraction percent. And I think that if we had followed that course, that's what I'm kind of advocating here, or that's what I'm trying to support. And I'd be glad to support the data on it. And I think that the cutoff where you see the 50% plus one cutoff on community support is a lot higher than 3%. That's not saying they will pass it. Every election is different. Every electorate's different. Past does not predict future results. But we've been undercutting that trend line a lot, and pretty much every last 5 years have been underneath that trend line. And I'd be happy to share that data with anyone who's interested in seeing it.
So I appreciate that, Christian. Please feel free to share what information you have with all of us. Let me, before we turn over to the discussion section, let me just say that I do not disagree with you in terms of how we can improve the process. I think a lot of this has a strategic plan which actually forecasts finances in the future, and to avoid that 9% sticker shock in a decade from now, I think would go a long way to ensuring that what we're doing and the actions we're taking are integrated in a way of not just providing the best education that our community can support, but also ensuring that the resources that we have at bear, we can bring to bear to the problem, as opposed to saying we're willing to do one thing but not willing to pay for it. So I'm fully in your camp, I believe, as it pertains to that. I think the best way for that to be pursued is through further work on building out a strategic plan that identifies all these different needs, not just for this year, but future years, and how we could get there.
So let me just respond by agreeing with you, and I think a strategic future plan makes this a much better situation, and it makes us easier to justify what we need to do, well, not just 1 year, but in, over the next decade.
Thank you for that, Christian. So let me try to tee up the discussion. I think we have a two-part issue before us. The first is we've seen the needs assessment. We've seen Terry and his team's work to reduce that to what they believe is an affordable level, knowing that everything can't be covered because of the fiscal constraints that we find ourselves under. I'd like to just start the conversation with, okay, we have 3 items. How does everyone feel about those 3 items that have been identified? I think that's discussion number 1. And then discussion number 2 goes to what Harvey was saying about how to fund it. Because any way you look at it, there is a deficit based on the current state numbers that we have. And as a result, how much of that blend of unassigned fund balance and tax levy are we feeling comfortable with moving forward? So let us start the conversation first with the item of, and this goes back to, I believe, page number 4 of the presentation, which is the highest priority needs identified by the district, addresses 3 key areas, and those are an FTE for elementary teacher, which is, we understand to be at the kindergarten level, an FTE for a high school business teacher, and 20 additional UPK seats for that program. Anyone? So I'm sure everyone has already considered this well. Is there anyone that opposes the 3 that are been listed here? I'm assuming that, yeah.
I'll take the bait before you go to Christian.
Yeah.
First off, thank you to Terry and Harvey for presenting the needs list, for pruning it down. As Megan said, working, starting in the fall with this process with building administrators, team leads, within the departments. I think these 3 needs are justified, and assuming that we get, at minimum, what was in the executive budget proposal in January, I'm okay adding those 3 and leaving at that. Obviously, if the numbers come back and we see a substantial decrease in state aid, then we'll have to have a difficult discussion.
Thanks, Jim. Christian?
So I am in agreement on 2. The third is the one that obviously I've spoken about already, and the difference is more that it would not be my top priority. And so if there's other things being considered, it would be further down the priority. It's not a vote against it. It's a matter of where in the priority ranking it goes.
And just to be clear, that was identified as the high school business teacher?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Anyone? Brendan?
So you had mentioned that you wanted to break this down into 3 items. You mentioned what one is, this. Number 2 would be the funding. You're keeping us enwrapped about number 3. I think I know what number 3 is, but if it's not what I think it is, I might want to say it now. So is number 3 what we would prioritize if we got a little bit more money, or if the situation changed?
So I would rather have that discussion when we have that number, because I don't think if I were to handicap it, the reality of us getting more money is remote. I think of what we've received or what has been projected to come our way is what we're going to see. Other districts that have received less than what they were expecting, at least what they're going to be the ones that receive a better number. We're going to keep what we have. So if we were to receive additional monies, I would defer that conversation for that time where we had more definitive knowledge.
Fair.
Okay?
John,
And so
can I just piggyback on that?
Yeah.
Could we have the conversation in the context of Christian's point about if we stretch a little bit? I'm not suggesting, run for the hills tax increase, but if we stretch a little bit, what would we look at? Because it's not just with the state. I mean, I don't know, does everyone think like this is the cap that we're willing to go? Or do we want to look at some of the other items on that list that, to Christian's point, you can buy it now, you don't need it next year, so.
That's fair? No. So getting back to the first point.
Mm-hmm. So that was going to be my follow-up, that you start playing with the number. So 172, and it kind of wraps in something that you were saying, Christian. I agree with the philosophy of creating the financial space. I think that at some point that becomes an accounting trick, and that there's a bit of musical chairs that goes on, and in the end you realize that you have just been asking people to spend a lot more money, and they run out of money. And then you fall off a very catastrophic cliff. So you have to approach that philosophy with a lot of restraint. But I agree, it's a very interesting way of looking at it, particularly when it comes to expenses like the sound system that you don't have to fund the next year. It becomes an attractive device. Now, I think there's a lot there could be a lot of response to that. John has responded, so I won't go into that too much. I think that for me, the numbers that I've always tried to keep track of, what we can afford, what the community is likely to stomach, has been closer to 2 than 3. 2 seems to be where we start getting into the lower 50s in approved budgets. And I would say that we don't want to be at 50 plus 1. 50 plus 1 is, the stakes are far too high when it comes to actual kids' educations to be throwing dice against the wall every year. So 50 plus 1 is not where that is. I think it's more towards, if we wanted to put a number on it, 55, 60. And I would say last year is the only time we were over 60 since, I think, well, at least since I've been on the board and a few years before that. So, which if I had to guess, is not true of Carmel, because we're actually one of the only districts that have had such close budgets every year consistently over the last 10 years. So how this is germane to this discussion. If we are looking at 2% as like the magic number, something we want to stay below. If we're at 172 now, we've got essentially a quarter of a point of a percentage point. So that's back of the envelope math, $125,000 to allocate before we hit that 2% number. There are some teaching positions that are within that, but to Christian's point, that's something that if we fund, we get less money next year, we might have to make a very difficult decision.
I asked previously about the sound system, if there was a modified proposal. You know, I know, just the little I know about this, that there are different parts of the project that you could take piecemeal. And I would be interested to know what would $125,000 get us in this regard, and would there be a stomach to go up to 195, for instance, if we could include that? It has to be a meaningful. We have to be getting a good deal out of it, you know. But in this kind of year where we are looking at the long term and reading the smoke signals coming out of Albany and what that could mean for next year, that would be the kind of investment I would feel comfortable making, as opposed to a position that, talking about musical chairs, we might get called on next year.
Okay. Christine?
I would just double down on that and say, pay now, pay later. I don't want to go cheap. And like, I don't, that's not what you're suggesting, but maybe there's a little extra in the fund balance or something. I mean, $50,000 isn't a lot out of $5 million, right? And I do want to remind everyone that we're the first school in New York State that's going to have Harry Potter next year. So this isn't just, I mean, there's a lot that goes on in that auditorium, but at some point, we have to really start supporting the exceptional things that are going on and the recognition that the school is getting. You would hate for the sound to go out when you have everybody in the state looking next year, so.
Just to talk about a number, so this is what I would have as a 2.25, 2.24 budget. In my rough calculations, and Harvey, please check my math. So this would be the kindergarten teacher, the hall monitors, the 0.2 for the physical education teacher, which is basically rounding up an existing teacher to full-time, the sound system, and the 20 UPK seats that I have, and not to mention including our deficit as well, gets me to around 2.24%, but I'm doing back of the envelope math. And I think that would be something that would be, I think our community would support, and if you look at historically, I think that is sort of where our long-term average is.
I appreciate that view. We can talk more about that, but let's first get back to the issue of, we have 3 needs that have been identified. And I understand the desire to possibly bump what's been provided and find a way if we could get there. But at its core, there's a recommendation right now for 3 specific adds to budget for next year on whatever page number that is, number 4.
Can I just make one point on 2 of the 3? Because I'm just a little uncomfortable with, we don't need them for next year. School board members went to school visits and talked.
Where'd you hear that?
I'm sorry?
Did someone say we didn't need them?
No, the like mission critical one-time payment, I'm just saying, no, I just want to reiterate the need for 2 of the 3. One,
I see what you're saying.
The kindergarten teacher is, unlike other districts, we are not decreasing enrollment. Right. We're going exactly the other direction, so please don't confuse that. That is to meet a need for opening our doors next year. And then the elective teacher, we started our conversations with just an elective teacher, and the business side is what played out with our students. So our high school team has to run let's put out there everything that the students might possibly select. Joe DeBold looks at all the selections and says no to this. Like, let's say, I'm going to say this because I know Catherine won't be offended, but let's say they said no to creative writing, but yes to this. That's how they determine like how many teachers they need for next year. So it's not business per se. That's what our students have said we need to open our doors and for everyone to have a schedule with everything that they need for next year. So those 2 are based on where we are as Cornwall, we need for next year. It's not like if it's an we're gonna be faced with kindergarten teachers saying, please, board, address the 29 to 30 that I have in my class. That's just the reality of kind of where we are versus some other districts are declining enrollment and looking at other pieces. So I know that,
I was petitioning for more money, not to replace.
I know, I just wanted to just really reiterate that those two were really intentional as we thought of the needs for opening our doors next year.
Thank you for that, Terry. Okay, so getting back to the three items that are listed on slide number 4, 2 FTEs, teaching positions, and additional slots for UPK. As a baseline, I hear everyone supportive of that, which is great. Thank you for that, okay? Now, what I'd like to do, not talk about how that's going to be funded. I heard enough information from people suggesting that maybe this doesn't go far enough in covering, I'll use the term loosely, our needs. And when I say that, all these are needs, but what in terms of a list of priorities, maybe there are other things that we would want to target this year in addition to what Terry and his team have targeted and recommended to us. I've heard Brendan talk about it, specific to the sound system. I think Christine was also there. Christian, you're there. You're there as well. So there are a number of I guess pros and cons for that. I don't know if we have enough information at this point. I mean, to render a judgment in that. I think Brendan makes a very valid point that there are probably things that could be brought in place sooner rather than later that would not equate to a full expense of $250,000. It would be nice to know what those items are and what type of a significant improvement they make to the overall system. But which is a great question.
Harvey, the number for the sound system?
The sound system came from a quote that we got from a company that does this. I will say that, you might recall we had a conversation about this last year. This is a very comprehensive quote, and that's why we did talk about as well, perhaps breaking it up into some things and, kind of phasing it in.
And the net effect of the phase-in would be, from day one, there'd be a marked improvement overall.
Correct.
Right?
Very, very much so.
It's just a matter of how much of that improvement do you experience.
Right.
Little by little, it's great at the end of your process.
Right.
Right, okay.
And we recently did that as a board with the security assessment. So the doors, we knew we couldn't fund all at once, so we phased it.
Right.
And so that would be something to consider.
So, yeah, Bass,
I would
go.
Caution against doing this item in phases, only because we're talking about technology. Technology is changing every day. So if you do 25% of it, say, let me come back and do this 75, most likely it's not going to work. Things are not compatible, technologies are not compatible, and
Okay, thank you for that, Bass. Richard, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess what it comes down to is what was brought up about this one-time cost, right, and how it could help us in the future. So if I did my math correctly, this sound system at 236,500 would equate to about a 2.06% tax levy if we included the entire package, something around there. Then I guess what this comes down to is, does the board think the community would support that? And can we put it out there in a way that we're transparent in what we're doing and that we can show that this is part of a longer-term plan and that we're preparing for our needs in the future? So for me, I'm pretty confident. I think the community would support it. That's just my opinion, though, not the board's. I just wanted to say that.
I think it's 2.2.
It's 2.2.
I mean, because I'm going off 125.
I'm getting 2.18.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Can I offer a possible solution just to consider?
So before
Just-
before you go to that, I would agree that, you know, rounding gets you to 2.2, not 2.0.
Yeah.
On that.
So
Just
my
go ahead, Terry.
stepdaughter's a drama kid. We all love drama. I'm fearful of what the community is going to support. It's not do we support drama? They're going to look at the whole package. They're not going to parse this out as a drama or sound system piece. My suggestion is, John and I and Jim have talked about, you know, playing the what will the governor do conversation quite a bit. I went over to Harvey to kind of talk about, like, where did we pull enhancements to the district from before, and it's always been around that fund balance. What if we parse this out and say the board is fully committed to putting some money towards enhancing the sound system at the high school? What if the governor we wake up tomorrow and the governor says, Cornwall is plus 60K, and we say that 60K goes to part one of the sound system? I think everyone could get around. We made some decisions tonight based on what we know. We are hoping for something from the governor's scrub of the budget, whether it's the inflation piece. We could have a nibble there. Harvey, I think that's the one area that we could win on. But it would be a way to show that we're trying to be fiscally sound. We got a little bit more from the governor. It didn't make the top three, but it was right there. But that little bit extra, 60K could, I mean, that's a fourth of the overall quote. And there's no way anyone can tell me 60K in enhancements is not going to be felt like day one for everything that the high school needs. So it's just something to consider, that rather than keep going at that tax levy, I do think that there's something with the scrubbing of that fund balance and what the final numbers are for us that could be a win-win for us.
Thank you for that, Terry. I do agree that with surplus funds, the answer in how this gets funded is with surplus funds. I do like the idea of putting something in the budget that frees up the budget in future periods. That is attractive at some level, but I think our community would support the notion that we need to improve our sound system for our kids for a variety of reasons. Not because we were chosen, but because our kids deserve it. And I'm not picking on you, because I agree with you. Yeah, well, yeah.
And I'm not in favor of going to 2. You know, I want to be clear about this.
In looking at you mentioned it, Christine, the 2%, we have not been in 2%. And I don't think I'm willing to test the community's resolve in doing that. I think it's all discovery, and we've done a good job of, as Brendan pointed out earlier, going from a slim majority of support in the low 50s to the mid 60s lately. And I would hate to test that with a number that history suggests we haven't been there yet, knowing that there are a number of other issues that we need to confront, not to mention the contracts that will be coming forward in the years to follow. That will probably be budget negative for us. So I like Terry's idea. I think we need more information, though, in terms of understanding, to Bass's point, how much of what can be done to get the max benefit over a phased approach, if that's what is possible. And I don't know if that's doable by Monday.
It is.
It is?
I can do that. I can look at the quote, and I can speak to them and get a better sense of how this could best be phased in, with giving us an impact up front and not impacting anything until we phase it in.
Right. Great, Harvey,
I'll
thank
find
you.
out.
And I'd like to approach it that way, and I'm getting a lot of north-south from folks, so I think there's unanimity amongst us on that issue. But getting back to the recommendation of this 3 high needs areas, these key areas, we're all in support of that, right? And this other issue to follow. Okay, thank you for that. So let's then move on to decision node number 2, which is how do we want to go about funding it? And we've had some discussion already, but I just want to open it up for any other thoughts on that. We've heard, not to be Goldilocks here, but maybe 2 or higher is too much of a tax levy to propose to folks. And in terms of fund balance, maybe the fund balance, there is enough room there based on this year's surplus to support that and possibly more. So as I saw on page, 7, and I may be in the wrong space here, but I think it was, nope, I'm sorry. Thank you, Bass. It was page 5. Harvey has put a straw man together about funding sources, suggesting as a good middle ground, hey, of this deficit, 50% on the tax levy and 50% on the unassigned fund balance, making it an assigned fund balance for the budget. I think that's a great place to start the discussion. And is there anyone that wants to start off? Bass, go.
Yeah, I'm against increasing the tax levy above the proposed 1.72, especially because of the timing. And by timing, I mean now the inflation we're going through, that the media insists that there's no inflation and things are improving, which is wrong. Everybody's feeling it everywhere, in the grocery store, at the gas station, wherever you go. Things are increasing by 50%, if not more. There, if you look at the way they calculate that, they tell you it was 8%, is going down from 8%. I believe the formula of calculating inflation was changed in the 80s in order to make things look good and rosy while they're not. So the timing of going above the proposed 1.72 is wrong, and believing just trying to have enough confidence that the community is going to be supportive, I don't think so.
I'll just quickly say, okay.
Just to ask for clarification, Bass, I want to make sure. Are you saying that you think we should not go above a 1.72% tax levy increase, or the tax levy increase should be 0? I just want to make sure.
No. I'm saying we're increasing it enough to 1.72. I wouldn't go.
So you're okay with 1.72? You don't want to go higher than that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what you're saying. Thank you.
Good, great. Brendan.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly give a thumbs up on Harvey's proposal of 50-50 tax levy assigned fund balance. I think you can glean from my previous comments, if we wanted to add more, I would be comfortable staying within the 1.9s, but I do think 2% is the third rail, for a lot of the reasons that Bass said. For 1.72, in fact, I just think that it's not the time, and it's kind of never been the time in Cornwall to push that.
Ditto. I agree. I don't need to.
I'm
say
sorry,
more,
my
but
mic was
I
off.
think that's, yeah, I agree with what's been said.
Christian.
So I disagree for previous reasons, so I'm willing to go a little bit higher than 1.72 or 2. Not a lot more, but as I said, what I would put in to get to around 2.25 or 2.4, and I'd rather use a tax levy than the assigned fund balance, because I see the assigned fund balance is like the reserve that protects us against all the things we talked about in the future, and the tax levy gives us more fiscal space for the future. So to the extent that we're saying one or the other, I guess maybe I have more faith than some other people in what I think the community will support. But we are as a board, and so we have to make that decision together collectively.
Thank you for that. Louis?
Sure. Yeah, I'll echo what Brendan said as well. I do think that we could probably get close to the twos, but I do think the two would be untasteful for the town. You know, Brendan, I think it was your suggestion a couple of years ago to do a 0% increase. That was on where we could have done 4.5 or better, and we chose 0 because of the inflation. I point your way, Bass. You mentioned inflation, and I completely agree. It's a slippery slope because I don't know if we're going to escape that world of inflation. You know, people said this COVID spike, the supply chain spikes. Well, they all kind of spiked, and I wouldn't even call it a spike because spike means something's coming down. I've not seen the down yet. So it's a delicate spot we're in because we have to try to predict that and accommodate for it, the spike that never failed. It doesn't stop spiking. But I do think at some point in time that omelet, that egg's gonna have to crack. But I don't think it's now. I think I'm in general leaning towards what you gotta summarize, Brendan.
Thank you for that, Louis. Just to clarify my chuckle, you know, they say tragedy over time equals comedy, and the spike that Louis was, this persistent spike that Louis was alluding to is the reality, and I think we should be cognizant of that as we move forward. So thank you for that, Louis. Richard?
Yeah, I won't repeat what others have said, but I'm in agreement that I support this proposal here, 1.72. I would be comfortable going up a little bit more. I think 2% is about I don't want to say sweet spot. It's probably the maximum amount we want to go up to. So, yeah, I'm good with what we have, and if we can find a need that would keep us below the 2, I would be in support of that.
Thank you for that, Richard. So I think we're all in support of that. You know, 1.72 seems like such a definitive number, even though we have a conceptual budget at the state level that we're contending with. Jim and I just quickly, as Brendan was talking, we're talking about the pros and cons of tweaking that number a little bit. And I think, you know, whether it's 1.75 or 1.95, it doesn't really move the needle. And if we're going to move the needle anywhere, especially for the item that we're discussing, the additional item that we're discussing, which is the sound system, the place to do it probably is in the fund balance or surplus arena, not in the tax levy. So I'm comfortable personally with a 1.72-ish number, knowing that the numbers still need to be solidified at the state level. And then in terms of what the split is, I understand, you know, the 50-50 seems reasonable, knowing that there is probably space on the upside on both. But if we were to err on the side of which one, I'd rather on the fund balance for now. And I hope I'm seeing a lot of north-south to suggest that people are in agreement with that. Jim,
yeah, I just wanted to hop in and echo, you know, Brendan, I think, stated it pretty well, but I want to maybe take just a half step back and say, you know, that 1.72, the number comes out of, you know, really relying on the administration on down of that needs assessment. So I'm comfortable supporting that because they're saying, hey, these are the needs. This is, you know, as Terry said, this is what we need to open the doors in the fall. So I think it's important to note that we're just not, hey, let's pull off the menu, and we're doing as a board, we're really relying on, here's what they've identified as those needs. So I kind of agree with everybody that 1.72, it's nice that the number works out, that it's almost exactly at that average. I want to echo, I think, you know, Brendan and John have sort of expressed, you know, Christian earlier said, hey, 50 plus 1 is good. We've been on, it gets it passed, it gets it passed. We've been on the board, and the board, prior to me joining, really was sweating those out, and that's not a good situation to be in. And there's a lot to be said for the work that we've put in my 2 and nearly 3 years on the board here, of really gaining community support through communication and through the actions we've taken, not just on the budget, but capital project. And we've got another capital project, in the offing here in the next couple years. So we've put in a lot of hard work to get that number up into the 60s. I think the capital project was actually approved over 70%. I forget the exact number. I think it's important that we work to keep that level of community support that we have worked so hard to maintain. And so, I guess just needless to say, I have some philosophical differences with the budgeting approach that you laid out earlier. I'll leave it at that.
And Jim, no offense taken on differences of philosophy.
Yeah.
And I appreciate everyone's candor and the discussion. I think we get to a better place with everyone's input and the like. So thank you all for chiming in on this. Very, very important. Okay, so I think we have unanimity. Let me just check with Terry. What else besides the outstanding item about this sound system and what can be carved out or phased in and how we might go ahead funding that? What else do you need from us this evening?
So just to make sure that my team heard correctly, that we're in support of the 3. Depending on what the governor's final budget says, we'll figure out, based on board comment, what that means for tax levy versus fund balance. We heard the board loud and clear which way to go. But to do some more research on the sound system piece to see what we could carve out for enhancement, but still keep us within a reasonable piece to present to the board on Monday what we believe would be the finalized budget.
A workable plan for that, right? Understanding it's either not all or none, but all or, parts of this over time. Having that approach would be great for us. Thank you. Brad, go ahead, Brad.
John, excellent summary, the way you put it. I would add just one little thing about phasing the implementation of, upgrading the sound system. Just take the factor that if you want to do it in 20% shots, whatever you want to do that, 25s, 50. Consider the technology and how it evolves. Do something that's not going to be affected by how the technology evolves, like whatever. Like if I want to pour concrete, I'm pouring concrete, it's not going to change.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Okay, that was a lot. I think it was valuable, though. Hopefully Terry and his team have enough information to move forward. Really appreciate all the hard work that went into getting us to this part. I think it was mentioned, it starts earlier in the fall. And so we're almost there. We're in the red zone, I guess, right? The Heinz red zone on this, which is great. Okay. I think that takes us to our second to last item, which would be public comments. Is anyone wanting to come forward? And please grab your mic and state your name and share what you have to say.
Hi, everyone. John Hines, CCTA president. The association in the past has come up here and asked for copy machines, so you've heard it for many years, so I have to give everyone credit when Harvey said we're getting 9 upgraded machines. That's 285 happy employees and members that it actually directly affects our working conditions. So I do need to give you credit and thank the 9 of you and central admin for getting that done for us, so thank you. And for the school budget, the CCTA is ready to engage our community to pass this budget. We will be full steam ahead because public schools do unite us. Cornwall Central School District is why the Cornwall community is what it is. So I'm ready to have full steam ahead and get the CCTA back behind your budget next week. Whatever you adopt, the conversations sound great. So we're going to get the community behind this. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Right?
There's another one over.
It's
oh,
on.
It's on.
It's on. Thank you.
First of all, this was a really wonderful educational experience for me. As an educator, I'm listening how you mindfully are putting this budget together. You're bringing services directly to the students, and I think that's very important. And also as a teacher, the copy machines are really important. We're required to do so many things. We have to scan documents, post them, in, classroom, things like that. So thank you. And first of all, I'm impressed by all of you, the work that you do. And I know it's a thankless job. And I just want to tell you I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So anyone else? Great. So let's move on to closing comments from the board. And I'll start with Richard.
The trickery here. So I want to start out by, as always, thanking Nick, who filled in for the two of them tonight. So he did twice the work. So good job to him, and thanks to him for keeping us up to date on everything that's going on in the schools. It's all great stuff to hear. I want to recognize all of our students who were here tonight. I mean, everyone, and I don't want to go down the list, so I don't want to leave anybody out. But every single one of them are so impressive in their own unique ways. And I think it shows how diverse Cornwall is and how amazing our students are in these different aspects of our school district. So congratulations to them. I couldn't even imagine running a 4-minute mile. When I heard that, I got tired, thinking about it. What else? So tomorrow, the visitation committee is beginning our spring visits. We will be visiting the 3 elementary schools tomorrow, and we will also be having our visit to the middle school on Thursday, April 25th, so a week from today. And we will be visiting the high school on Monday, April 29th. And I just say that because we do have a couple openings for alternates to be part of our visits. So if anyone here is interested in any of these 3 days, just come see me after the meeting or send me an email or a text. And with that, hope everybody has a good night.
Brennan?
Thanks, John. Congratulations to all the athletes. Each year, I am impressed anew. It's just unbelievable how many national champions, runners up. I mean, it's extraordinary. If there was one of those in this school, it would be incredible. The fact that we can roll them out for almost every sport it really does kind of defy belief. So a huge congratulations to them, to all the coaches, to Mr. Simo. Just what a wonderful night. Congrats to the CCHS Drama Club. I don't know if everybody saw it. Something Rotten was just an unbelievable show. I always say to my wife is tired of me saying this. Nobody's a bigger drama supporter than I am. I feel like 2.5 hours, even on Broadway. I get a lot of blowback for this. It's too long. It should be 2 hours. By 2 hours you get it. But 2.5 hours of this show was not enough. It was like you really didn't want it to end. It was so funny. Everybody, every scene was like just gut punching laughter. It was phenomenal. Congratulations to everybody involved. Mr. Ravinsky for his stewardship there, and everybody. I know our own Nick Tesson was getting belly laughs
Every Sane, Maggie Diaz was as well, and Jay Carter. I'm saying that because their parents are literally in the room, but everyone else truly an amazing job. I want to underscore the Student Leadership Council that Mr. Simo was talking about earlier. This is a great development. This is the second year that this council has been active, and I know the event last year was a big hit. Just underscore that date. That's May 19th at the middle school football field. If I recall directly, it starts too early, so it's like 8 a.m. or something. But come out and run with Terry. You might even beat him. And to all those who've put that together, I would like to just make one constructive and loving suggestion. And I think this is the initial intent of the council, was to start with the athletic program and then build out from there. This is such a great opportunity. I would love to see it extended to all different kinds of clubs, not just arts necessarily, but for those that are interested in business and the sciences. There are leaders in every industry, every background, and I would love to see us generate that kind of support and enthusiasm for all of our leaders, particularly because it kind of dovetails with something we were talking about tonight in the budget discussion. They mentioned that a lot of the money that they raise at that event will go back into their own programs, which is phenomenal, which is exactly what we should be going for. But as we were just mentioning with the sound system, a lot of things that need a lot of funding for other clubs and areas, and it would be not only nice, it would almost be fair to give them the same opportunity to raise those funds to support their own program. So when you have a great thing, double down and make it even better. And I would love to see that expand in the district. Thanks.
Christian.
So since we talked about relays earlier, I'm going to pick up the baton from Brendan and kind of say second on the thing about the Leadership Council. I think I would love to see it expanded beyond just its foundation. And I think there's lots of other groups of leaders in our school that I think would broaden and diversify the leadership cadre that we have in our school. I also want to acknowledge the athletes, performers, etc. But I want to take a little bit of a different take on it, which is I want to thank their coaches and their parents, because their success is all their fault. And I think that we should acknowledge all the people who stand behind them, who sometimes live and die with their successes and failures and make it possible for them to have the success they are. And I think I am grateful that I serve on a board where we support the people who make that possible for their students. And I'll just end there.
Louis. Thank you. So yeah, I'll jump on with the arts and athletics, the three A's. Arts, athletics is amazing. You can use that if you want. Take that. Yeah, congratulations to all of. It's oozing. It's oozing. Congratulations to all of them. A humble appreciation of both. I played the piano as a kid, and I was not skilled enough to keep it going, and just know your strengths and let that go. I skied enough to get down a hill, and I ran if someone was chasing me. So, yeah, it's called gravity. It happened. So, their accomplishments are amazing. A big shout out and hats off to Sophia Bettinger and her fellow athletes. Amazing accomplishments. Kudos to their fellow athletes and educators that are participating in that. It's very heartfelt. And shout out and thank you to the PTO for the solar glasses that they worked up and whipped together and found, and let our little ones be protected. And going outside, I saw some pictures of all these little kids with these glasses on. It's like a little alien movie, everybody taking over. But it was great. So thank you to those guys, and appreciate the presentations this evening. Enough air has been spent on that, so I'll just say thank you. Christine?
I feel like someone stole my notes. Yeah, I'm just so impressed. I mean, All-American, state champs, it's unbelievable. And I think of us as like the small little town, and we're competing against these big districts, and yet we still turn out these incredible leaders and athletes, which says so much just about how we believe in our town and our people and expect the best, and people rise to that. So congratulations to all of them. It's so exciting. I had the same exact thoughts around the Leadership Council. I would love to see it expand beyond the arts, Key Club, Yearbook Club, whatever it is. I think there's just a lot of opportunity there. When these students got up and spoke, I remember last year I was in the audience, but they kind of took that mic tonight with a different stance, like joking with Terry across the board, right? Like there's something to be said for having that success last year and feeling the confidence to take those risks. So kudos to all of them. Mr. Ravinsky, I'm sorry we missed the photo op with the musicians today. I just didn't realize, and then when I thought about it, someone left. So please pass our double congratulations. And then congrats to the team at Something Rotten. Brendan, I agree. Even as a parent, sometimes when you got to go to the play 3 or 4 times, you're like, oh, good, I get to see my kid. But otherwise, you're kind of like, oh. That doesn't happen often here, but this one, I would go 6 more times. It was so funny. And so I'm just being honest. And if you say it's not true, you're lying. I would say, though, that I think, Mr. Ravinsky, his key, or one of his keys, is surrounding himself with super talented people. So when we think about Denise Carter, John Hines, Carolyn Kulick, John Fay, our musician coaches, these are the coaches of those students. And I had a friend with me, and she said, I cannot believe you have every kid on that stage double time tapping, or I don't even know what she said, but she was like in awe. So it's really incredible to build their confidence that way too. Thank you for the budget information and making it easy for a new board member to understand. And I really appreciate you allowing us to dig in and brainstorm out a little bit about that sound system, because I know that was a little off topic, but I appreciate being able to dig in and try to see what we can do. So thanks for that.
Pass.
Thanks, John. Opening our meeting tonight again with the national anthem performance, I'm so grateful. We have students and groups that can give us such great performances, and every time, I'm yet again feel this like grace, if you want. Listening and seeing them performing. And the sport titles, what we saw today, that is a testament to the quality of our educational programs. Not only athletics, but everything. We know that these athletes also excel in the classroom and other programs as well. So we're grateful to have them. And lastly, I wish success for the students in the remaining 2 months or so. We're wrapping up the academic year, and I just wish everybody the best.
Hey, Jim.
Thank you, John. I will drop off my royalty check when I drive past Matt Bannon's house on the way home, and for his phrase ditto. But I will give 2 quick additions. There's 2 things that were missed. The high school play was talked about. Wonka Jr. also went on at COH. Kindergartner Charlie Cragen delivered just a thrilling performance as a candy kid. And Christine, I thought for sure you would steal this one from me, but we did. What's that? You were leaving it for me. We got an email from Orange Ulster BOCES today for the Skills USA area competition, and I believe Cornwall had 3 or 4 winners or placers. So we love to call those out as well. So Sean Hansen first for automotive service technology, digital cinema production. Sierra Walker third, and where was the other one on there? See, that's why you're smart. You said don't call it individual names. You missed someone. Ruth Knight first, job skills demo year 1. So 3 winners there in the Skills USA competition over at BOCES. So
all good stuff. Great, thank you, Jim. So let me just wrap it up. Lot to be proud of, lot to be excited about, lot to celebrate. not just what we heard from about our athletes and our musicians, but also the people that support it. All this can't happen without effective role models, mentors, coaching, and we have that. And that's what sets us, I think, apart from other places, is that we have that community, we have that dedication, and it's year in and year out. And it comes down to trust. And we were talking about the budget, and it struck me as we were talking about that trust is a lot like liquidity. You have it until you don't. And then when you don't have it, you're wondering where'd it go. And I hope that we continue to have the trust, not just the trust of the community, but the trust of the staff, of our leadership, of each other, to keep the success story that I know as Cornwall Central School District rolling for years to come. And with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting. Any
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting closed. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.